Hey everyone, hope you're doing well. Got an interesting read today. For the obstacle, we're doing the Ten of Cups, and for the opportunity, the classy, ever perennial Arcanum 13, otherwise known as Death, even though classically it was the nameless Arcanum. It's quite an interesting change that Waite incorporated into this deck. But anyway, let's jump into it. So, starting with this 10 of Cups, um, just looking at the picture, which is one of the things that I think is, you know, one of the things of value of the weight deck. I feel like we get an immediate sense of this. It's a freaking rainbow, okay? And they got this couple they're embracing, at these kids dancing around. Uh, I feel like the design of this is, the intention is to evoke happiness and joy and satisfaction, achievement, emotional achievement, right? I mean, you compare this to the what I always refer to as the original, the Marseille card, which I believe should be oriented this way, but that's just my theory. And we get, how do you take what's on the left and then come up with what's on the right? The the tens are an interesting. Gotta let the cat in. The tens are an interesting card from the perspective of analyzing the deck with numerology. Getting meaning out of that, and that meaning I feel is very different than what what I think most people get from this image, right? So let's try and think about this in terms of obstacles. This is certainly an idyllic, it's an ideal representation of everything. You want to own a house out in the country. You want to have someone that, let's see, you're in love with, you're really close to. You got these kids. The kids are wearing the same shit you're wearing because they're they're good kids. They're kids that like you and model themselves after you. This is the perfect picture. The the first the first kind of idea for an obstacle that comes to mind to me is that the the obstacle lies in just having this type of an image in your head of having this kind of firm goal that you're chasing. You're locked into you're locked into you see this picture, you see some sort of a picture like this when you imagine the future. I won't be happy until I have this thing. I have to have a house in the country. I got to be married. I got to have kids. There's got to be a rainbow with 10 golden cups hovering in the air. It's got to be perfect, right? So I think it's like being attached to that, which could be an obstacle, right? And then in terms of the more academic interpretation of the of the card in in what I believe to be its origin, it's like the tens, in my opinion, exist outside of the journey of human experience, and that journey starts with areas of development that are almost subhuman or pre-human. It starts with this earthy kind of stage of development. That's when you're a baby, let's say. It's like, uh, how much personality or autonomy do you have? There's this period of time that we spend growing up. Let me flip this. Almost like before we're people, and then as individuals mature, they often get to this point where the things that concern you seem to be so outside of what the common human life is. Like, imagine how dedicated an individual has to be to an ideal or to a philosophical pursuit, to sacrifice their own life in the pursuit of that greater good. Like, at that point, you could make an argument that something beyond that individual is actually living within them and then carries on living, like there's an intent or a spirit or whatever you want to call it. And that's the 8 and 9, when the abstract spiritual belief based aspects of a human being start to become the dominant ones, when your life no longer consists of the kind of day-to-day physical human world kind of things. I mean, obviously everyone still lives that way, but there's a big difference between being preoccupied with, like, think of it this way too. Someone who's going through life just trying to find food, and that food and shelter, like trying to cover that Maslow's hierarchy of need. That's very different from someone who feels an incredible need for self-actualization, who's got the food and shelter covered. They've got the peer, what is it called? It's like you got the respect of your peers. That's one of those things in the hierarchy, that kind of security. Eventually, if you're lucky enough, if you worked hard enough, a combination of a whole bunch of factors come together, near the peak of that hierarchy of needs, there's self-actualization. That's an incredibly difficult undertaking, to complete. I would argue that it's much more difficult to satisfy that drive than it is to find food when you're starving. Um, the kind of the kind of suffering, let's say, quote unquote, that comes from failing to reach that objective exists on a whole different level than the kind of suffering and pain you feel from, let's say, starving to death. Obviously, I'm not trying to diminish one, but yeah, I'm trying to illustrate that there's a whole hierarchy of needs and concerns, and I feel like people throughout the course of their lives can exist on all these different sort of levels of how they see the world, what aspects of life they are aware of, which parts of it they're ignoring, maybe not concerned with. And the 10, just the 1 or the ace and the 10, they lie outside of this whole structure of growth and evolution. So this is like, I don't really see these people as actually being representative of people. This is a card that's depicting uh, something that is just purely an abstraction. This doesn't symbolize some sort of reality where there's actual people having fun and enjoying it. This is just the fantasy, And I think that, yeah, there can be something really weird about pursuing this too much, pursuing this trying to hold on to this idea in a really sort of calcified and firm fashion. This is also the nature, I think, of the 10s and the 1s in the tarot. The 1s are chaotic, pure potential. They're the burst of initial energy, that breathes just boundless life into an area of development. And the 10 it's simultaneously a perfection of that area of development, but it also means that everything is fixed and rigid, and there's nowhere to move, and there's no choices, and there's, like this. I almost see this as like the type of bliss that is absolutely enslaving. Anyone. I mean, what would even happen to a person who felt complete happiness and bliss forever? Like, would you be able to function? Would you do anything? Can you even appreciate things and be happy at the same time? Like, could you be a family member? Could you work? Or would you just be some like Zen Buddhist monk just happily sitting there as you wither away into nothingness, So yeah, I think with this, the obstacle might be focusing on just this ideal too much, just this idea that until you feel this perfect everlasting sense of happiness, that you're failing in life, or that things aren't going well. It's like, this is an interesting thing to strive for. Sorry. This is certainly something to strive for, but it's like it's a direction which, it it puts you on a path. It puts you on a journey. The journey, it's the journey, not the destination. That old cliche, right? Um, Pursuing happiness is, I think often I remember reading somewhere, it's like it's the pursuit of happiness that actually gives people the most satisfaction, not the moments when they have attained that happiness. Then they generally just look for a new thing that they don't have yet, that they can pursue, that they think would make them happy again, right? But yeah, so I kind of see this as a little bit of a warning, and then for opportunity, this guy, Mr. Bony Pants. So yeah, people hate this card. When you're doing casual readings, people often get freaked out when they see this. Now, one thing that I certainly like about the Waite version is that the all the different characters on the ground. You got the king who's laying down there. He's probably just having a nap. He's probably just resting. There's like kind of like a baby and maybe like a teenager in white, and then there's the priest praying. I think this is a really interesting way to represent the relationship, different types of people at different points of their development that they have with change. I think often people, that's the kind of, oh, this doesn't represent death, this represents change, right? So for a king, for someone who occupies a really rigid position, especially if you're already at the top of your game, if you're occupying the highest position, you're not interested in changing or radically altering anything, because the only place you have to go is down. You're already at the top, right? So for this king, this like flattens him out. This little baby, this little child wearing blue, it's just hanging out. It seems like it's kind of interested, and you gotta think, like, to a baby, it's every day is completely different. They haven't figured anything out. It's what makes childhood, really beautiful and really terrifying, is that there's so little consistency. The teen kid is kind of just like looking away. I'm not sure what part of human development this might be trying to symbolize. Like, there's certainly a point at which, teenagers, young adults turn away from all the craziness and experimenting, and turn to turn towards an adult life that's more rigid and structured, and they stop revolting. The revolutions stop. Then you got this priest who's like praying to this character, and I think this is one of the inconsistencies in the interpretation of the armored figure on the horse. I think the priest is praying towards this character as a symbol of death, as a symbol of final change, whereas these other characters are interacting with it in terms of it being a symbol, an abstraction of just change on its own. But yeah, religion's certainly, one of the things that I'm pretty sure every religion fundamentally concerns itself with is what happens, what change takes place at the point of death. It's the big change, right? And that's kind of what often gives them, their authority, let's say, or their importance. But yeah, so he's got this relationship where he's like, he wants to, maybe he's like paying his respects to this thing. You got in the background there, if you're familiar with the moon card, it's got the two towers, look like the two towers from the moon card, but now it's daytime, the sun is rising over that area, so that's very different. The sleeper has awoken, the dreaming stage is over, and the area that used to be the place of nighttime fantasy terror potentially now is bathed in light. There's an area towards the bottom left, just above the king, which could be a desert that now has an oasis there. We don't know, but so this is a changing landscape, and this character, this skeleton in a suit of armor, is what's marching it in. In terms of the opportunity here, I certainly think that the dethroning of the dethroning of powerful individuals who have been, you know, in positions of power, but nonetheless in pretty rigid, fixed, calcified, motionless positions. Some change happens. This could be change in a market, change in the culture, you know, and those people at the top, the ones that are too entrenched in large, rigid corporate structures, educational structures, they can't adapt. They fall. They make room for potentially new people to rise up and fill their place. So partially, this could represent someone in a high position stepping down or being taken down, and creating a power vacuum, creating some sort of an opportunity for other, let's say, employees, students, whatever, to reshuffle. So there's an opportunity in that for the childlike individual. You know, there's the opportunity of being able to witness uh, an agent an agent of change, you know, someone that really symbolizes that. I like how he's got that banner with the flower on it, and then it's black, representing sort of black as, you know, chaos, possibility. This flower is really rigid and white. Kind of makes me think that um, nature in all of its chaotic expression, when looked at as a whole, is actually very ordered. You know, I kind of like the idea of this little kid looking at looking at this character and for the first time grasping the big picture of all the change that's happening, and at the same time, like, what's that? There's so many great cliched sayings. You know, the only constant is change. Ooh, you know. So I feel like with the kid, it's maybe the first time someone is not necessarily hearing that sentence uttered, but experiencing it for the first time, because it's a beautiful experience. It's a very zen-like experience. So I think there's certainly an opportunity that lies there. And then also something that I recently talked about this card. It's something that I sort of noticed for the first time since I've been looking at these cards, that I wondered. You know, I was comparing it to the Marseille deck, and I was thinking, you know, in that one, you got this skeleton, he's got the sign, he's mowing stuff down, fertilizing the field. Again, the field is all black. It's got all this chaotic potential. You know, anything could spring out of there. These heads on the ground, are they decapitated, or are they growing out of the earth? Is this where new kings and queens emerge from? You know, from like the field that has recently been rejuvenated. But yeah, but the one from the original deck, it's just kind of, it doesn't really even look that much like a skeleton. It just looks like a really skinny dude, you know? The face, you can see there's like a silhouette of a human face with then the skeleton superimposed. Is it like painted on top? One way or another. He's certainly not wearing armor. It's one of the things that I recently thought of was like, you know, you can't really put armor on yourself. I mean, I don't know that much about armor, but I'm pretty sure this is the case for most armors, especially something like this kind of medieval looking set of armor. You can't get into this on your own. You need a helper, squire or whatever, and then also you can't get out of it by yourself, and you can't just keep it on indefinitely. I'm pretty sure I remember reading something about knights, you know, going into war, and their squire or assistant or whoever gets killed, and they get stranded somewhere, and you know their horse is down, they can't ride back, and they end up dying because they're stuck in their suit of armor, and they can't, you know, there's only so far that you could travel in this really heavy thing. You can't go to the bathroom in it, or I mean, I guess you end up going to the bathroom in it, but so yeah, it just becomes this really dangerous thing that you're stuck in, and all the protection that the armor affords you also makes you extremely reliant on others to get you in and out of it. And so, looking at the Waite deck card, I caught myself thinking like, who got this Skeletor dude into this armor, and like who's gonna get him out? And is it this priest? Is it the priest that dresses up what used to just be this naked, and in the Marseille deck, the skin tone color, it's like it's very important. Colormancy plays a big role in this, and I think it's very important that the skeleton is like flesh colored, the one on the left. I'm pretty sure that there was a specific intent here to imply that the skeleton isn't completely some sort of metaphysical figure, but that this is actually some sort of agent or actor that we should at least partially be able to relate to as being human and common and earthly. But yeah, over on the right, it's still looks like he's kind of skeleton's kind of yellow. It's not bone white, but this armor, it's like who got him into that? Who made this agent of change, less human, less vulnerable, more armored, but at the same time reliant on a relationship with someone else? And I think that this really reminds me, I hate to just always be quoting media that pops into my mind, but in Game of Thrones, there's like a line delivered by a sneaky fellow as he's having a debate about the nature of chaos, and he describes chaos as like a ladder. It's and I'm not sure if he quite means it as a tool so much as the shape of a particular environment that is structures itself to be climbed up and down. And yeah, that's kind of how I see this card in a way, is like I see someone taking chaotic chance and change and growth and death and rebirth, and dressing it up for their own purpose, of embracing it, of armoring it, and wielding it to do work for themselves. So this is I guess the more high concept opportunity. I think there might be an opportunity to embrace change as some sort of a tool that you can use and have it go out there and work for you, like this kind of knight or soldier or warrior or whatever. And that the skeleton character on the right, it looks like he's doing his own thing. With the one on the right, it makes me wonder who he's working for, and whether reinforcing change and maybe accelerating it is the means by which you can armor it and then have it become dependent on you. Like the instigator of some sort of radical shift or change might be in a superior position to people who are just being influenced by that change. And I think I'm gonna leave it there. Hit the like button, bonk it. That's instead of smash or hit. I like bonk. Reminds me of the little Shiba Inu meme. Bonk the like button if you had a fun time, and subscribe. Leave me some comments. Everyone that leaves a comment gets entered into a draw to get a free one-on-one reading. So far, we have no winners. Next draw is coming up on Sunday. Thanks for watching, and take care. Talk to you tomorrow.